Okay, so you want to own an Airbnb. Buy a nice apartment or a little house in a place people want to visit. Furnish it, put it online, and let a steady stream of travelers pay you 2, 3, 4 times what a long-term tenant ever would. They stay a few nights, they leave, the cleaner comes in, and the next guest checks in. You've turned a normal property into a machine that prints tourist money while you sit back. It's real estate, but supercharged. That's the plan in your head, and the top-line numbers really do look intoxicating. A one-bedroom that might rent to a long-term tenant for $1,500 a month could, as a short-term rental, charge $150 a night. Fill it 20 nights a month, and that's $3,000, double the long-term rent from the exact same property. You look at that and you think, why would anyone ever rent to a boring long-term tenant when the same walls can earn twice as much from tourists? Here's the problem. That comparison, 3,000 versus 1,500, is the single most misleading number in this entire business, because those two numbers are not the same kind of money at all. The long-term rent is money you nearly keep. The short-term revenue is money you have to fight for, clean for, pay fees on, and give back a huge share of. And by the time you're done, the two numbers are far closer than they looked, and sometimes the wrong one wins. The truth is that an Airbnb is not really a real estate business. It's a hospitality business, a tiny unlicensed hotel that you happen to run out of a house. And the moment you understand that you're not a landlord, but a hotel operator, everything about why this is so much harder and so much more fragile than it looks starts to make sense. Let's start by taking that gorgeous $3,000 month and following where it actually goes, because the leaks are everywhere. First, the platform takes its cut. The site that brings you the guests, that gives you the trust and the reviews and the payment processing, charges a fee on every booking, a slice off the top of everything you earn, forever. Then there's cleaning. Every single guest turnover means the place has to be professionally cleaned, laundry done, supplies restocked, and either you're doing that yourself as unpaid labor, or you're paying a cleaner every few days, and in a busy month, that's a serious recurring bill. Then there's furnishing, which long-term landlords barely think about. A long-term tenant brings their own furniture. A short-term rental has to be fully furnished, decorated, and equipped down to the coffee mugs, the extra towels, the shampoo, the kitchen utensils, the smart TV, the fast Wi-Fi. That's a large upfront cost, often many thousands of dollars, and it wears out. Guests are not gentle. Things get stained, broken, and stolen, and you're constantly replacing them. A short-term rental has ongoing consumable costs, coffee, toilet paper, soap, that a long-term rental simply doesn't. Then the utilities, which the tenant normally pays in a long-term rental, are all on you, and short-term guests run the air conditioning at 65 degrees with the windows open because they're not paying the bill. Then higher insurance, because standard homeowners insurance often won't cover commercial short-term rental activity, so you need a special, more expensive policy. Then the software, the smart locks, the listing photos, the dynamic pricing tools. Every one of these is a slice off that $3,000, and stacked together, they take a shocking amount of it. But none of those costs, real as they are, is the number that actually kills the fantasy. The killer is the one hiding inside that word revenue, because that $3,000 assumed you filled the place 20 nights a month. And occupancy, in the short-term rental world, is a wild, unstable, seasonal thing that you do not control. This is the central inversion of the whole business, and it's the one every beginner gets wrong. A long-term tenant pays you every single month, all 12 months, whether it's summer or winter, whether the economy is booming or crashing. That rent is boring, and boring is exactly what makes it reliable. A short-term rental has to be re-rented, night after night after night, and every empty night is revenue that is gone forever. You cannot sell last Tuesday's empty room tomorrow, and occupancy swings brutally with the season. Your beach town Airbnb that's packed in July at $300 a night might sit empty for weeks in February at any price. Your ski cabin is the reverse. The $3,000 month is the good month. Nobody puts the February number in the fantasy. So the honest way to think about a short-term rental isn't the nightly rate at all. It's the annual revenue, spread across the good months and the dead months, minus all those leaks, compared against what you'd have made just handing the keys to a long-term tenant and doing nothing. And when you run that comparison honestly, a huge number of short-term rentals earn only a little more than the long-term rent would have, and some earn less, for vastly more work and vastly more risk. Now here's where the naive model really breaks down, because we haven't even talked about the work, and the work is enormous. Remember, you're not a landlord, you're a hotel, and a hotel is a service business that never sleeps. A long-term landlord might hear from their tenant twice a year. A short-term host is on call constantly. The guest who can't work the smart lock at 11 at night. The guest complaining the Wi-Fi is slow. The one who says the place wasn't clean and wants a refund. The double booking. The last-minute cancellation. The broken air conditioner in a heat wave with a guest checking in at 4. You are running a front desk, a concierge, and a maintenance line for a hotel with the world's least forgiving review system, because a few bad reviews can quietly sink your ranking and your bookings with it. This is a hands-on service business disguised as passive real estate, and the people who don't realize that going in are the ones who burn out fastest, which is why so many hosts hire a property manager to do all of this. And here's the catch. A short-term rental property manager doesn't charge the 8 or 10% a long-term manager charges. They charge 20, 25, sometimes 30% of your revenue because they're doing 10 times the work. Hire one, and a huge chunk of that already shrinking margin walks out the door. Do it yourself, and you've bought yourself a demanding part-time job. There's no version where the service work just disappears. Either you do it, or you pay dearly for someone else to. Now, let's talk about the psychology and the strategy, because the hosts who win are genuinely skilled operators, and they use levers the amateurs don't even see. The first is dynamic pricing. The smart host doesn't charge a flat nightly rate. They raise prices for the big local event weekend, the concert, the graduation, the festival, when demand spikes and travelers will pay anything, and they cut prices to fill the dead midweek nights that would otherwise be empty, because a room sold cheap beats a room sold for nothing. Pricing a short-term rental well is a real skill, closer to running an airline's seat pricing than setting a monthly rent, and the difference between a host who prices dynamically and one who doesn't can be enormous. The second lever is the review flywheel, which is everything. In this business, your reviews are your entire reputation, and reputation drives ranking, and ranking drives bookings. So, the smart host obsesses over the guest experience, the spotless cleaning, the thoughtful welcome, the little touches, the instant responses, not out of pure kindness, but because 5-star reviews are the fuel that keeps the bookings coming. A host who lets standards slip watches their ranking decay and their calendar empty in a slow, quiet spiral that's hard to reverse. The third is what they're really selling, which is not a place to sleep. A hotel sells a bed. A great short-term rental sells an experience, a specific feeling, the design, the location, the view, the vibe you photograph and post, the thing a generic hotel room can't offer. The properties that command premium prices and stay booked are the ones that offer something distinctive, and the generic, forgettable ones get crushed on price in a race to the bottom. Before we get to how this business actually breaks, it's worth being fair. Because a great short-term rental, run by a skilled operator in the right place, absolutely can outperform a long-term rental by a meaningful margin. The winners pick the right market, buy or furnish a genuinely distinctive property, price it dynamically, protect their reviews obsessively, control their costs, and treat it like the real hospitality business it is. Done right, it's a legitimate, profitable operation. It's just nothing like the passive fantasy, and it's exposed to one enormous risk that a normal rental simply isn't. And that risk is the thing that can end the whole business overnight, with a single vote at a city council meeting you didn't attend: regulation. Because short-term rentals have become deeply controversial. Every apartment turned into a full-time Airbnb is an apartment that a local family can't rent to live in. Cities watched short-term rentals swallow their housing supply and push up rents for everyone, and neighbors got tired of the rotating parade of strangers, the parties, the noise, the suitcases at all hours. So, cities all over the world have cracked down hard. Some ban short-term rentals outright. Some require expensive permits and licenses. Some limit you to renting only the home you actually live in, or cap the number of nights per year you can rent, or restrict them to certain zones. Major cities have passed rules that wiped out thousands of listings almost overnight. Think about what that means for you as an owner. You bought a property, furnished it, built up your reviews, and structured your entire financial plan around short-term rental income that might be double what long-term rent would be, which is often the only reason the mortgage math worked in the first place. And then the city changes the rules, and suddenly your legal, profitable Airbnb is illegal. Now, you're stuck with a property whose numbers only made sense as a short-term rental, forced to switch to long-term rent that doesn't cover the mortgage you took on. That is a risk no ordinary landlord faces, and it is entirely outside your control. So let's put it in plain mechanical terms and do the honest comparison. Take a property that would rent long-term for $18,000 a year, money you'd nearly all keep, with a boring, reliable, hands-off tenant. As a short-term rental, in a decent market, that same property might gross, say, $36,000 a year across the good and bad seasons combined, double on the surface. But now, subtract the platform fee, the cleaning on dozens of turnovers, the furnishing wearing out, the utilities you now pay, the higher insurance, the supplies, the software, and either your own relentless labor or a manager taking 25%. By the time all of that is paid, that $36,000 might net down to something not dramatically higher than the $18,000 of nearly effortless long-term rent. And in a bad year, a slow season, a new competitor down the street, a soft travel market, it can net less for 100 times the work and the constant hum of regulatory risk hanging over it. In the optimistic version, you nail the market. Your property is distinctive and photographs beautifully. You price it dynamically. Your reviews are pristine. Your occupancy stays high across the year. And the regulations in your city stay favorable. You genuinely earn well above what long-term rent would give you, and the extra income rewards the extra skill and effort you put in. This is real, and it's why the best hosts keep doing it. In the realistic version, Nothing exotic goes wrong. Your occupancy is fine in summer and dead in winter. Cleaning and supplies and the platform fee eat more than you expected. You're answering guest messages at midnight and replacing stolen towels and stained sheets every month. A few new Airbnbs opened nearby and pushed everyone's prices down. And you're always, quietly, watching the local news because there's a proposal at City Hall to restrict short-term rentals, and if it passes, the whole calculation collapses. Your revenue looks impressive on the listing page, and yet after everything, you're earning modestly more than a long-term landlord for dramatically more work, sitting on a business that a single new ordinance could switch off. So if you do run an Airbnb, understand exactly what you're really running. You are not a landlord collecting easy rent on real estate. You're the owner, manager, front desk, and cleaning coordinator of a tiny hotel, competing on price and reviews and experience, absorbing every empty night yourself, doing the relentless service work that hospitality demands, all on top of a property whose entire business model can be made illegal by people who will never ask your permission. The high nightly rate was always the bait. The real business was the endless work behind it and the quiet bet that the city will let you keep doing it. The building was always just real estate. What you actually signed up to run was a hotel.